Welcome back, everyone. In this video, we're going to continue along with our look at categorical propositions. In the last video, we introduced ourselves to the four standard forms of categorical proposition. So we're just going to review that a little bit here and then walk through some of the additional details that have to do with the relationship between the different parts of sentences that standard form covers. So as you recall, we have sort of our shorthand notation to abbreviate the four types of category. We begin with our A propositions. A propositions are our universal affirmative propositions. Universal affirmative takes the standard form all subjects are predicates, all SRP. So that is the A proposition. We then have our E proposition group, which is our universal negative. The universal negative proposition excludes membership of subjects and predicates. So the standard form for E is all subjects are not, no subjects are predicates, no SRP. We then have our I propositions, which moves into the particular. The I proposition is a particular affirmative, which affirms the membership of at least one member of the subject class in the predicate class. Some SRP, some subjects are predicates, is the standard form for our I group. And then last but not least, we have our O propositions, particular negative. O propositions takes the form some S are not P. There is at least one member of the subject group that does not belong to the predicate group. So get in the habit of repeating these four categories to yourself so that they can become almost like second nature. They're just things that are memorized. A, E, I, O. Okay, so moving on a little bit, I want to talk about some of the properties of the four types of proposition. We have quantity, quality, and distribution. And this is covered at length in section B of chapter 5 of the Baronet text. So let's begin with quantity. Quantity, we have an understanding of what this word is in its ordinary usage. But in this context, it refers to the universal or particular status of the proposition. Are we talking about all members of the class? Are we talking about some? Are we talking about none, right? Quantity is the universal or the particular. So if we have a sentence like this, all cats are mammals, we know that the quantity of this proposition has to be a universal quantity because we are dealing with every cat, presumably, in the world, right? All members of the subject class, cats, are at issue here. So the universal, the quantity of our A proposition is universal. If we have a sentence like this, slightly tweaked, some cats are mammals, the quantity has to be a particular, it's particularity, because we are only addressing or referring to at least a few members of the subject group, but not all members of the subject group. So this is an I proposition. Remember, it's a particular affirmative. Some cats are mammals has a quantity of particular. All right, so universal or particular designates the property quantity. Now, quality refers to whether or not the proposition is affirmative or negative, right? So remember, we have four propositions, four categories of proposition, and they are divided into by quantity and quality. Whether a categorical proposition is affirmative or negative speaks to its quality. So if we have a sentence like this, some cats are mammals, the quality of the sentence, of the proposition, I should say, is affirmative. It is affirmative because I am affirming, I am kind of including membership of at least some members of the subject class in that predicate class. This is a particular affirmative, right? This is our I proposition. So also ask yourself what the quantity is, and in this case, it's particular, right? So affirmative is going to come with these sort of verbs to be like are or is, which indicate membership, right? It affirms uh, membership of subjects in predicate classes. If I have a sentence like this, however, some mammals are not cats, the quality is negative because I am denying or I am negating membership of the S class in that predicate class. Some mammals are not cats. So verbiage like are not, where there's that sense of negativity, is going to have a negative quality, right? And this is, of course, an O proposition since the quantity is particular. So terms that indicate quantity are things like all, no, and some, right? Those are words that in English designate kind of the how much of the sentence, and usually we're dealing with the how much of the subject. And then I want you to be aware of our copulas. Copulas are terms that really divide the subject group or the subject class from the predicate class in terms of the verb to be. And copulas are terms like are, is, or are not. And they also indicate for us quality, right? Okay, so we have subject, we have predicate, we have quantifiers, we have quality, and we have copulas. These are sort of the building blocks of our categorical propositions. Now I want to talk about distribution. And distribution really has to do with the relationship of the subject class to the predicate class. Distribution is a proposition is said to be distributed when a categorical proposition asserts something definite about every member of the class. In other words, if that sentence is telling me that all members of the subject class belong or do not belong, then I have a distributed proposition. So distribution refers to the exclusive sense with which a class is said to belong to another class or to not belong to another class. An undistributed proposition, on the other hand, is one where the sentence does not assert something definite about every member of the class. So something is unknown, perhaps, about the membership of the class term. Okay, it'll take a little bit of time to get a handle on distribution. It's sort of an abstract property that deals with the relationship of subjects to predicates. And remember, in categorical logic, we're really dealing with classes of things and the relationship of belonging of those classes of things to another. So distribution will be an important way for us to sort of wrap our heads around the quality with which propositions are issuing. Okay. So let's look at the distribution of our four types of proposition. Universal affirmative propositions, our A proposition, something like this: all cats are mammals. Try to think about whether or not this sentence, for example, is distributed or not. Is that subject term, is something being said definitely about every member of the subject class in a distributed fashion? The subject class is a distributed class. It's a distributed term because of the all, right? We really are saying that every cat in the universe, as it were, is also a mammal. It has this trait or belongs to this class. So it's distributed because I really know about this trait of every member of the subject group. It's distributed because it exclusively says something definite or necessary about every member of the subject group. The proposition asserts that every cat is indeed a mammal, and so that subject term is distributed. On the other hand, the predicate term is undistributed. Now, this might seem a little counterintuitive in a universal proposition, but actually, the sentence, its meaning is not saying something definite about every mammal in the world, right? It could be the case that there are other animals out there that are mammals but are not cats, as we in fact do know is the case, right? The predicate mammals is undistributed. The proposition doesn't say something definite about every mammal in the world. It is only saying something definite about every cat in the world. So the subject term of the A proposition is distributed, but the predicate term is undistributed. Now let's look at our universal negative proposition. Again, this is our E proposition, no S or P. If I had a sentence like this, no turtles are mammals, no turtles are mammals. Look, I'm trying to designate the subject class, turtles, in red, and the predicate class, mammals, in red, split up by our copula, R, and then our quantity, no. Now, the interesting thing about every E proposition, every sentence of this form, is going to be one in which the subject and the predicate are distributed. Because actually, the sentence is telling us that there really is no subject class, turtle, that is also a mammal, and there really is no predicate class, mammal, that could be said to belong to the subject class, turtle. There's total exclusion on both sides of the copula. So the proposition asserts that not even one turtle is a mammal and not even one mammal is a turtle. So you have total distribution for every E proposition, for every sentence that takes this form of the universal negative. So to return again, the A proposition, our universal affirmative, has distribution of the subject, but an undistributed predicate. But with our E propositions, our universal negatives, we have distribution of both the subject and the predicate. And this is true for any content that is taking this form. All right, I want to be clear about that. Okay, moving along in our sequence of 4 propositions, we now have our particular affirmative propositions, the I propositions, some SRP. If I have a sentence like this, some students are sophomores. Again, I have the subject group highlighted in red and the predicate group highlighted in red. Split between them is our copula, R, and our quantity, some. Try to think for a moment about the distribution here. Write out the sentence and then indicate whether or not the subject is distributed or undistributed, students. And then think about whether or not the predicate class is distributed or undistributed, sophomores. Okay, for our I propositions, both the subject and the predicate are undistributed. We don't have a definite claim about every student, right? We only have a claim about at least one student, some students. The quantity is particular. When that quantity is particular, we have no distribution. The term does not say something exhaustive about every student out there, right? And similarly with the predicate, sophomores, we're not saying something definite about every sophomore. We're saying something about just some membership of some S in the P group. So the proposition does not make an assertion about every student or every sophomore. So our particular affirmative propositions are totally undistributed. And this will be true for any content moving forward. The I proposition is the least distributed, as it were, has no distribution. Now, I want to be clear, this does not mean that an I proposition cannot be true. The truth value is a different issue than the distribution. Okay, so don't take it as evidence of some kind of limit or faultiness of the particular affirmative that it is undistributed. It's just one of its properties. Okay, and it'll be in a sort of interesting property as we play with these things moving forward. And our final category is the particular negative, right? The O proposition, some S are not P. If I have content like this, in the example, some cars are not fuel efficient, where the S class is cars, and the predicate class is fuel efficient. Notice that our quality is negative. We're excluding with that term not. Are not is a copula. that indicates negation or negativity, and our quantity is some, so it's particular. Again, try to indicate for yourself the distribution of the subject class and the predicate class for the particular negative sentence like this one. Some cars are not fuel efficient. This is a little tricky. The subject cars is indeed undistributed. If you wrote that down, you're correct. Much like with the case of the particular affirmative, the I proposition, if we just have some cars being predicated or included in the P class, that's not saying something definite about every car, right? It's just saying at least one car is not fuel efficient. And so it can't be said to be a distributed term. The proposition does not make a definite assertion about every car in the world. If it was all or every car, then it would be a distributed term. Okay. The predicate term, however, is distributed. This might be counterintuitive, but with our O propositions, the predicate term is always going to be distributed. Since at least one member of the term cars is really definitely excluded from every member of the class fuel efficient vehicles, we know something definite about that predicate term. We know that at least one member of cars is excluded from it. So that's a distributed term. Now, this is a little hard perhaps to get a grip on at first because our intuitions would suggest we would need to know something definite about all fuel efficient cars, but really what distribution is just telling us is something definite about the exclusion of at least one member that we know for sure is not belonging to the P group. Okay, so to kind of rehash quickly here, the particular negative, the O proposition, has an undistributed subject class and a distributed predicate class. And that is going to be true of any content that takes the form some S are not P. Okay. So here's the shorthand for the distribution of every categorical proposition. Here is the shorthand for our A proposition, the universal affirmative, all S are P. Notice I have kind of in the superscript here, D for distribution. The subject term for the A proposition is distributed, but the P group, the P class, is undistributed with U. So A propositions, universal affirmatives, have a distributed subject and an undistributed predicate. Our E propositions, our universal negative propositions, are totally distributed. We have D by S and D for P because we know something definite about both terms. E propositions distribute both subject and predicate. For our I propositions, our particular affirmative, we have no distribution. I have an undistributed subject term and an undistributed predicate term. So for every sentence in the world that takes the form some S or P, I don't have distribution of subject or predicate. And last but not least, our O proposition, our particular negative, has an undistributed subject term and a distributed predicate term. A, E, I, O, where with A, we have distribution for subjects, no distribution for predicates. With E, we have total distribution. With I, we have no distribution. And with O terms, particular negatives, we have only distribution for the predicate. Okay, I'm not asking you to memorize this chart, but I just want you to start to begin to have a feel and understanding for the logic of the relationships of the different parts of category. Universals distribute subject terms, right? You will notice this pattern. With both universals, A and E, the subjects are distributed, right? Both A and E, their quantity is universal, and negatives distribute the predicate term. So propositions with the quality of negativity distribute the predicate term, right? We have the E and the O taking on negative qualities and distributing both the P in both instances. Okay, so that's just kind of an interesting pattern that will prove to be useful for us as we start to do some further work on this stuff. All right. So check your understanding a little bit here before moving on. Let's look at an example. If I have a sentence like this, some protein supplements are not healthy diet aids. Some protein supplements are not healthy diet aids. What is the subject of this sentence? Write it down for yourself. What is the predicate? What category of proposition? What is the category? Is this a universal affirmative? Is this a particular affirmative? What is the category? And do also write down the abbreviated letter as our shorthand so you can start memorizing it. And what are the terms? Are they distributed or are they undistributed? Is the subject distributed or undistributed? And is the predicate distributed or undistributed? So what's the subject? What's the predicate? What is the category? And what is the distribution? Okay, this is our sentence again. Some protein supplements are not healthy diet aids. If your answer to the subject was protein supplements, you are correct. That is our S class right here, coming right before our copula. If you had answered healthy diet aids to the predicate class, you are correct. Remember, our predicate groups and our subject groups can be more than one word. That's entirely coherent, entirely meaningful. And in this case, we have 3 words for our predicate, separated by copula. The category is the particular negative, right? This is our O sentence, since we have a sentence that's taking the form some S are not P. Be careful with that are not. If it were to say are, this would be an I sentence. This would be a particular affirmative. But because we have this negative quality here, we know it has to be a particular negative. It has to be the O term, the O category. And then for our distribution, we know that for every O proposition in the universe, the subject term is undistributed. We don't know enough, really. We don't have information about every protein supplement, right? We just have a claim about some members of the S group being excluded from the P group. So the subject term is said to be undistributed for every O sentence such as this. The predicate term, however, is distributed. We have a definite claim about the exclusion of at least one member of the S group from the P group. So again, that might be a little counterintuitive, but we really do know that at least there is one protein supplement that does not belong in the P class. So we can say with certitude that the P class is distributed. Okay. All right. So if you're able to get all this right, good on you. You're getting a handle of this. If you were confused about what is the subject and what is the predicate, and then certainly if you're confused about what category this is, please just go back and watch over the first 2 videos of the chapter again before moving on. Make sure you understand categorical propositions. What are the 4 types of proposition and what is their form? How do you identify the subject and the predicate terms and what do they refer to? And then make sure you have a beginning understanding of the categories of quantity, quality, and distribution. Okay, that is all for now. We will continue with this stuff in the next video.